Hey, get ready for deliverance. In times, they surrounding us at all sides. Sin is at an all-time high, perilous times. Abba, be with us. Who will survive? Father, forgive us. Whoa. No more playing with the faith, who tryna get a seal. Messiah's coming, don't believe it, he gon' still appear. Labels say that they will sign us if we change the message, but we not interested, don't fold when your faith is tested.
Now, Elder Lawyer, I'm going to show you how the pagans used to operate when the Israelites were in charge, starting with the witch of Endor. Let's go to 1 Samuel 28:7.
Devil don't play fair, he trying to play to win. You know he gonna tempt you with your favorite sin.
Right, 1 Samuel chapter 28, verse number 7.
Yep.
Then said Saul unto his servants, Seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And his servant said to him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor.
Now, the familiar spirit is one who can tell you the future. Someone who's dealing with an angel or a spirit who gives information through a person, a medium.
I feel the spirits have arrived.
How's it going, New Age teens?
See that?
Can you hear
So,
me?
Saul, through his continual disobedience with the Most High, no longer could seek the Most High for understanding. It was all dark for him. The righteous side wasn't communicating with him anymore. So he had to go to the dark side. So he says, find me a witch. The witch of Endor. Let's read it.
Verse 8. And Saul disguised himself and put on other raiment, and he went, and 2 men with him.
So he hid himself.
And they came to the woman by night, and he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring him up, whom I shall name unto thee.
Bring him up, whom I shall name unto thee. I need you to conjure the spirit that I asked for. That means bringing forth the dead. Okay? Yes, familiar spirits were able to open up gates and allow people to see and speak to dead people.
As friends we gathered, hearts are true. Spirits near we call to you. Can you show us a sign?
Read.
Verse 9. And the woman said unto him, Behold, thou knowest what Saul have done.
He said, you know what Saul have done. Read.
How he have cut off those that have familiar spirits, and the wizards out of thy land. Wherefore, then layest thou a snare for my life.
Read that again. You know.
It says, And the woman said unto him, Behold, thou knowest what Saul have done.
You know what Saul have done. Now he disguised himself. So the witch said, you know what Saul has done. What did Saul do?
How he have cut off those that have familiar spirits.
He cut off those who have had familiar spirits.
And the wizards.
And the wizards.
Out of the land.
Those are males dealing with the craft. Out of the land.
Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life to cause me to die?
He says, so why would you ask me to do something that if I'm caught, I'll be stoned? Capital punishment. So back then, witches couldn't operate outright like we see now, without the threat of what? Death. It was a death decree amongst the Israelites that if you found a witch or a wizard, someone dealing with astrology, witchcraft, mediums, palm readers, everything that's normal in our society, they would have been put to death. They had to do it what? They had to do it behind closed shops. In the dark, secret. See? So folks, what happens when things flip where the pagans gain the power over us? Now we're the ones that have to navigate realizing the threat of knowing that we're Israelites. The threat the threat of knowing that we are followers of the law, God's chosen people who know that the next kingdom belongs to us. So we have to operate with that wisdom. We open up our mouth with these scriptures and all that, not realizing we begin to beat a hornet's nest.
You are a liar! You pose as a Christian, and you are nothing more than an agent of Satan! You are from the pit of hell! You are leading people to hell!
It's almost like that Christian persecution doesn't exist. I mean... Hail Satan! Hail Satan! Hail Satan!
Being member of the Arkansas Society of Freethinkers, and he served as its first vice president with much great ado that I introduce.
Where's he live?
This is a simple statement.
Where does he live? I don't know. America, I'd say. That's right. He can have his views.
Not just that, but the Constitution itself makes no reference to God, to Jesus, to Christianity.
Amen.
That's why that notion of this being a
LGBT community find ourselves gaining ground in the struggle for our religious and civil rights.
All of you have been affected by lies, and it hurts. It hurts your heart. It hurts your relationship.
You have to be wise how to use the word, not realizing who you are around. We're living in a pagan world. We're the only people in the earth that really don't have the freedom to serve our religion equally as other people. I need y'all to think about that. This is the only belief in the world out of every religion that's out there. If they want to put it as a religion, we know it's not. This is the only belief in the world where one can follow and be demonized. Why? Because they were demonized when our forefathers were in power. That's why.
You're from the same stock as the Khazars. You're from the exact same stock.
So you're seeing it one way, folks. You don't realize, folks. We're just starting to understand the depths of what us being Israelites mean. And we're just running willy-nilly with our mouth, not realizing it's like we just walked into a KKK burning cross with a Negro ready to be hung, and we just running through the bushes and like, yeah, what's going on here? Yeah, by the way, I'm an Israelite, and we're thinking that it's only isolated within those particular circles, when the whole world is that. The whole world is that. They know right now. You think they don't know right now that this whole campaign is a quote-unquote witch hunt? That really they're hunting our people outright? This is what all this is, folks. They turned it upside down where they can make an excuse to put us down. Israelites in a pagan world. That's what we're living in.
You can't be wasting no time. It's all on the scriptures, read through the lines. I'm a king like David, look in my eyes. No, I'm not capping or quoting no lines. I am not perfect, but I'ma keep trying. Keep on repenting, renewing your mind. Humble yourself and lose your pride. I pray that them blessings rain down on me. I pray this reach the streets. I'm praying for my brother team. Stay strong, you never been
the same way they had to go and hide in to practice certain things and all that. The disciples and those who followed the true doctrine of Christ one time had to go into hiding. They had to run under the catacombs of Rome and couldn't practice the true doctrine of Christ. Because why? The true doctrine of Christ shines a light on everything, and it just doesn't point out Caesar. It identifies the angels and the witchcraft and the evildoers that are controlling this world.
Recently, the chief exorcist at the Vatican reported that the devil was in the Vatican.
Morgan.
Wolf, Reverend Gabriele Amorth made headlines around the world recently when he said the devil was present in the Vatican.
You're talking about something very real, aren't you?
Certo, realissima. Dico, se credete al Vangelo, credete all'esistenza del demonio.
Absolutely, very real.
As to the devil's presence in the Vatican, he says that's no surprise. He once had to perform an exorcism on another exorcist.
The first thing we need to do if we're going to find out if the devil is at the Vatican is take a tour underneath the Vatican. As we arrive underneath the Vatican, we see that it is laid out in a number of rooms marked by letters, as we could see in this aerial view map. Now we will be exploring some of the rooms in this map. Let's start off by looking in room C here. As we look into the room, we see that this is a mausoleum of Lucius Tullius Zethus. The Vatican goes on and explains that this room was used for offerings to the dead. We read, view of the north wall and mosaic floor. In the corners of the mosaic floor there are 8 marble squares with circular holes through which offerings to the dead were poured during the funeral rites carried out in the burial chamber. So here we have a room where offerings are done to the dead. That's pretty common in Catholicism. Now if we look in the next room, room E, so here in this room they have a vase which has the image of a Medusa. So here underneath the Vatican we have a Medusa. Again, we ask ourselves the question, this is a vase, but yet it's kept underneath the Vatican. This could have easily been removed. If the Vatican was a holy church, you would think that they would have done this. You think underneath the Vatican they would have things that are sacred to Christ and not foreign gods, not idols and images of foreign gods. Now as we move down further to room H, here we see that this is the mausoleum that is one of the largest and most luxurious mausoleums underneath the Vatican of St. Peter's Basilica. It says that it was built at the beginning of the second half of the 2nd century during the reign of Emperor Marcus Aurelius and belonging to a freedman of the important Valeri family. And as we're in this mausoleum, we see that there's lots of idols from the old Roman Empire. We ask ourselves, why does Rome keep these idols down underneath St. Peter's Basilica? You would think if they were Christians, they would want to clean all this out. I can't imagine anybody who has a true church would keep idols in their churches, especially pagan idols left over from a bygone pagan era. But here we have the Vatican keeping many pagan idols underneath St. Peter's Basilica. Here is an idol the Vatican is displaying of a head of a child in gilded stucco and a lock of a hair typical of one initiated into the cult of Isis. And this particular idol is an idol of a boy who was initiated into the cult of Isis. If we look in this room, we see that some of the stucco decorating the walls. Here we have a personification of Oceanus. You remember the New Testament book of Revelation says that a beast comes out of the ocean. And so we say, why is the Vatican having these foreign gods underneath its basilica? Why is it protecting them? If it was a true church, it couldn't be doing it for the sake of art, especially with all the evil things that are happening in the Vatican. And as the priest earlier said, that evil does exist, the devil is real, as he admitted. But the hypocrisy of all of this is that they have all these evil images and idols underneath the Vatican of St. Peter's Basilica. We also see 2 figures of genuses with bat wings also portrayed on the walls. Again, this is supposed to be a holy church and a holy place. Now this is supposedly all there for many, many years. As we move into the next room, room I, the details of the mosaic floor with Mercury and Pluto's chariot. They go on and explain that this theme is an explicit reference to the overcoming of death and the return of the afterlife. They describe it as a splendid mosaic floor of Mercury is depicted carrying a caduceus with wings at his ankles, walking in front, and a chariot carrying Pluto and his wife Persephone. So here we have all these Roman gods underneath the Vatican, images of foreign gods. Well, as we move to the next room, we find out why they keep all these idols down there and these images. As we move to room U, here we find the shock of all shocks. Here on the wall, it says there is a depiction of Lucifer, that is, the light bearer, the morning star. On the opposite of the wall, there is a drawing of Vesper, the evening star, cosmic symbol of the human life cycle. We find out that when we get to room U, here we have a clear depiction of Lucifer underneath the Vatican at St. Peter's Basilica. We ask ourselves, why are they keeping this image of Lucifer underneath the Vatican? Again, you would think if you're a Christian church, you would not want to have any of these images. Now we know that they'll go on and say, oh, well, we're saving it because it's a UNESCO heritage site or something like that. This is always their excuse, saving it for the sake of art. But for the true Christian, this is not an excuse, because we know if you're giving glory and propaganda to false deities and false pagan gods, what are you doing? You're in essence supporting the evil spiritual realm. This cannot be from God. And since Rome claims itself to be the one true church, you would think they would lead by example. But what kind of example is this? That you have a depiction of Lucifer underneath the Vatican for countless hundreds and hundreds of years? Now this image here underneath the Vatican has been there since their claim, which would be Constantine. We would know that he was the first one that built this basilica. And so again, we ask ourselves, why are they keeping this depiction of Lucifer underneath the Vatican? Well, we think the answer for why all these images, idols, are kept underneath the Vatican is because what we're dealing with here is we're dealing with an apostate church that has always been apostate, and even now as it is filled with Freemasons. And so we know that the reason why they're keeping all this there now, and they're actually revealing this on their internet website, is because they want people to see this. They want people to see what they're really all about. For the masses who believe that Rome is still a pure church, they don't mind deceiving them into believing that they are still a Christian church. As you go down underneath the Vatican, down into the next rooms, they will try to convince you on this tour that you take that Peter is buried down there in one of the rooms, and that this gives credence to following the Pope. But we ask the question, why would you want to follow a Pope who has all these evil things underneath his church? It's very clear by this depiction of Lucifer that the devil is in the Vatican. He's hidden way down underneath the Vatican at St. Peter's Basilica. Now, if you are a Catholic and you are watching this video, we want to encourage you to come out of that church. As you can see from these images and these idols that are kept underneath your church, we would hope that you would soberly think about these things and ask yourself the question, if my church is a true church, why is it promoting these things? Why does it even want people to see these things? We would hope that you would hear the exhortation of Revelation 18, verse 4, where it says, "And I heard another voice from heaven saying, 'Come out of her, my people, that you may not participate in her sins, and that you may not receive of her plagues, for her sins have piled up as high as heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities.'" And we can also imagine what kind of things are done down there underneath the Vatican in secret when people aren't looking. And we want to say, in closing this video, that God's judgment does sleep, and sometimes it sleeps for a long time. But when his judgment awakes, hopefully it will not be too late for you.
So when you get this truth, you're walking around willy-nilly, not realizing that this is the pagan world, and you have to navigate according to Christ's directives, or suffer the consequences.
After being arrested yesterday during a commotion here at Church and Wellesley. Now, this neighborhood was not the first stop on the religious group's street tour yesterday, and I'm being told it will not be their last. Tonight, we take a look at the fine line between freedom of speech and disturbing the peace.
If you don't like what someone's sharing, if you don't like what someone has to say, the law says we exist.
Our cameras captured verbal clashes that erupted in the village as a leader of the religious group Christ's Forgiveness Ministry began amplifying his beliefs.
Would you tolerate me as a Christian? Go away? Okay, so you're a bigot.
David Lynn, seen here on the microphone, was telling passersby that he's, quote, coming out of the closet as a Christian. All of this was also being live streamed on the group's YouTube channel.
So you tolerate me as a Christian? As long as you tolerate me as a gay man.
Within 15 minutes, members of Toronto's LGBTQ community clapped back, hoisting signs that read, "Love is love." They've been on guard since last month when another preacher named Dore Love took to the streets here in the village, preaching explicitly about homosexuality being sinful. There was no arrest in that case. Last night, police responded about 30 minutes after the group's arrival. A patrol officer spotted the commotion and called for backup.
Turn the microphone off.
That's not the main issue.
Well, it is right now because see all these people around here? So you are literally...
Suffer the consequences, and don't claim you did it for Christ and that your suffering you're dealing with
we don't have enough
was for Christ's sake. Oh man, they put me out. My mom put me out, but I'm a persecuted for Christ. No, your mom put you out because you disrespected her home. You broke the rules. Okay. I'm being persecuted up in here, Mom. You shouldn't have bacon up in the refrigerator. I'm being persecuted. Nah. What you do is you find a little space for yourself, and I did it. I put my name on stuff and say, listen, kosher. And I made sure it was far away from the ham. Kosher, Rakashiar, and I had my little cabinet, and then I got enough money. I bought my own little refrigerator, and I put it up in there. Kosher. Listen, if you don't want you living in someone else's house, and you don't want your food next to something unclean, buy yourself a refrigerator. Okay? Have your own little thing until you're able to stand on your feet, because you don't, and I'm just using these small examples, folks, so that so you can understand the bigger picture, that it doesn't start or stop just in your home. It's the whole world. So Christ gave us the knowledge on how to navigate. At one time, the witches and warlocks understood, right? Let's give another example, Elder Lawyer. Yes, sir. Let's go to 2 Kings 23:7. This is Josiah's reform. Another example.
Yes, sir. 2 Kings 23, verse number 7.
Read.
And he brake down the houses of the Sodomites that were by the house of the Lord, where the women wove hangings for the grove.
So one thing we did, right? Once we gained the power in Israel, don't you think they have this knowledge? They know what the Old Testament says. We began to break down the houses and all that of Sodomites in the Old Testament. That's why they say don't read the Old Testament. Oh, no, there's bad stuff back there. Bad stuff for who? Pagans. They don't want you to recognize that we were born as Israelites in a pagan world. See? They don't want you to know that. So what happens when the Sodomites gain power over the earth? They are seeking vengeance on who? The children of those who persecuted them, who punished them, who've actually highlighted through the law the perverse behavior that have destroyed people. So this is their payback, folks.
Hail, comrades! Hail, sisters and
hail Satan. We are gathered here to celebrate the spirit of humanity in the dawn of a new American era. In a season when many commemorate the birth of Christ, we commemorate our own Genesis, the enlightenment of all humanity, a revelation of our nature as written in the annals of history, a gift from Lucifer, the light bringer, the morning star, and the rebel. We are Satanists. We engender moral, spiritual, and sexual freedom, personal independence, and insist upon personal choice in all things. We care for the significance of the individual spirits and personal moral responsibility. If you stand here today and embrace your nature, are free-thinking, self-governed, and godless, you too are a Satanist in the eyes of many in your own community, including those who represent you in your governments. But we are also Americans, a nation born of men and women seeking asylum from a majority religious group in control of political power who punish those who oppose them. In the words of Thomas Jefferson, our civil rights have no dependence on our religious opinions any more than the opinions in physics or geometry.
They remember what happened to the cities that once were constructed to be able to have little boys and have little girls and all this whole other stuff. We tore those cities down.
Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done.
The cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were full of evil, licentiousness, rampant with murder, and indulgence in extravagant pleasures. They reached the point of clamoring against God, of fighting against Him, enraging His disposition.
Where are the men which came into you this night? Bring them out to us, that we may know them.
After the angels took Lot and his family out of the city, burning sulfur rained down from the sky. The raging fire lit up the heavens.
Hurry up!
My house!
Our lives are on the line. Who cares about the house?
I'm not afraid. Just one look. Just one look.
Sodom, Gomorrah, and all their residents were reduced to ashes, disappearing into the wrath of God.
Like you can't be, oh no, I'm just adopting a child. Look at Steven Spielberg's Black Daughter. Under philanthropy, he adopted a child. And now, under the adoption, no one is talking about it. She's right now in the streets doing sex films. But when Steven Spielberg adopted that young little black girl, oh my God, he's helping the underprivileged. Well, what happened in her life? That's being swept under the rugs. You know what happened? She was allegedly being circled around to all these other people. And now she's out there exercising the perverse life she learned as a baby.
Doing this stuff for decades, getting away with it. So when you see missing children on milk cartons and you see that you go in Walmart and see that wall missing since such and such, they're not missing. They've been kidnapped. I told y'all that they have a crew that goes in certain parts of town, and they ask for the ages. We want them between 6 and 10. And they'll say we want them all white. And that's what they'll get. We want 3. And we want them in those age brackets. And that's what they're going to get.
It shows a man trying to abduct a child, but fortunately he didn't get far. Watch as a grandmother of 3 small children walk into frame to the left of your screen. A man covered in a blanket approaches, suddenly swoops down, yanks the young girl from her grandmother's grasp and runs. Frantically, the grandmother chases him. Don't worry, they were good Samaritans. They went after the man, eventually set the girl free. The suspect got away initially, but was later caught and arrested.
And they say, we want a black girl, beautiful, nice looking, virgin preferably, but if not, between the ages of 13 to 15, but we want her pretty. And you know how they recruit and you know how they find you? Lord have mercy, I'm about to tell y'all something. Walk with me on this. Because I hope y'all hear me. This is very important. I got chills when I get ready to tell y'all this. Listen to this. How do they find the girls that they think they want? Now, back in the day, it was hard. They had to go to the school grounds and go to these gymnasium of baseball and football games and watch the cheerleaders. That's how they did it back in the day. They sent out scouts. It's like a scout, but the guy was a perv to decide who he was going to kidnap. And they would take pictures and without their knowledge. Well, they don't have to do that no more. That was the 70s and 80s. They just go on the internet. They go through Instagram. They go, well, the best one is thus far is Instagram and Facebook. And y'all probably say, what? Yeah. Because these young girls and a lot of the older women, they don't want the older hoes. They just want the young one. They upload countless of photos, booty shots, eating, laying in bed. So basically these guys, they call themselves pizza boys. And it's really an organization that pizza is a code word for children. Now they have how they work it. They want an age bracket. They want a certain age. They will give us this one between ages, like I say, 6 and 10. But it doesn't stop there. If you notice, most kidnappings are between young children and teenagers. That's what they want. They don't want them too old. They want them young enough. Okay? And then they go on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram and just scout. And they be like, what about her? She's black. Oh, she's beautiful. She's got nice teeth. How old is she? She's 15. Get her. They locate her IP address, Google map it. They know where she's at. And what they'll do is send someone out there, her location, and just watch to see when she come out. And they'll get her routine down packed. They'll see she goes here, she goes there. We'll get her getting off the bus. When she gets off the bus, she walks alone. That's when we'll get her. We'll do it Friday. Or they'll just pick a day. But they do their scouting on the internet.
See? And that's just what it is. See, but back then, it wasn't outright where they would use the press to try to use it as some level of philanthropy or charity to help the little black orphans. Back then, they was outright taking little children and doing whatever they wanted to do with them. And the men had something to say about it. We started tearing down their houses. Everything the Sodomites did, we began to destroy. That's why they don't want you reading the Bible. So understand the world we're in, where the pagans and the Sodomites and all of these others are really in control. And now we're the ones that are being targeted like they feel they were by the God of Israel in the Old Testament. Finish reading, come on.
And he brake down the houses of the Sodomites that were by the house of the Lord, where the woman wove hangings for the grove. And he brought all the priests out of the cities of Judah, and defiled the high places where the priests had burned incense, from Geba to Beersheba, and brake down the high places of the gates that were in the entering in of the gate of Joshua, the governor of the city, which were on a man's left hand at the gate of the city. Nevertheless, the priests of the high places came not up to the altar of the Lord in Jerusalem, but they did eat of the unleavened bread among their brethren. And he defiled Tophet, which is in the valley of the children of Hinnom, that no man might make his son or his daughter to pass through the fire to Molech.
That's child sacrifice to Moloch.
I'm going to give you some details here, and I'm going to move into some other areas because I'm talking about corruption personified, okay?
A former FBI chief named Ted Gunderson blew the lid off the satanic pedophile ring. And why kids go missing, they're sick and twisted. How come we can't get no figures on these missing children? Through underground chambers, they do blood rituals in churches and schools. Don't be fooled, the elite drink from skulls in order to stay young. High on adrenochrome, a neurotoxin consumed by fear and adrenaline. Globally connected, an underground network financially funded by a Rothschild network. But wait, it gets worse. Ted also investigated Jack and Bob Kennedy and 9/11 conspiracies, which was a plot to take away our liberties, along with covert military enterprises. Ted died from bladder cancer in 2011 at 83, shrouded in mystery.
Satanic cult was involved in
a chemical compound produced by the oxidation of adrenaline, bucephanephrine. The derivative, carbazochrome, is a hemostatic medicine injected in domes. Despite the similarity in chemical names, it's unrelated to chromachromia. No, it's not the same. Created by pain, affliction of horror, terrorizing children, even fetus get tortured. Triggered psychotic reactions and thought disorder. The realization causes euphoria. It plays a role in schizophrenia and other mental illness. The new pill for the millennia, sold as a food or a drug consumption, regulated by the FDA. Government corruption, harvested from the adrenal gland of a living victim to satisfy the thirst of evil man. It's laced in milk and drunk by pedophiles dressed in silk, a ritual of prolonged youth.
Satanic cult was involved in terrorism. They're using it as an excuse to take away our constitutional rights and our civil liberties. The Bilderbergs. I personally investigated the Oklahoma City bombing case. A huge cover-up. Jack Kennedy's assassination, huge cover-up. Bobby Kennedy's assassination, huge cover-up. World Trade Center, huge cover-up.
The substance itself is derived from the adrenaline released into the bloodstream in times of great duress or danger.
That's right. A lot of you, what y'all don't know, a lot of these secret parties in Hollywood and different places, like Eyes Wide Shut, but when they have those parties, if any child is produced from those parties, those children are now a part of the priesthood. So when they have all those parties and they're all together with the masks on and dealing, 9 months later, any child that comes from that can either be sacrificed or they must be initiated into a school for the priesthood or the priestesses. Same practice. See? And we began to destroy those households that were doing that. This is how they have continual priests to take the place of others. Like the altar boys take the place of what? The cardinals and the bishops and the popes.
The rise in cases of baby factories in the nation have gradually added to the human rights issues bedeviling the country. The Nigerian police have in turn vowed to ensure that issues of child abuse and trafficking becomes a thing of the past. That's why these suspected members of a baby factory syndicate have been paraded at the state police headquarters in Delta State. They are accused of selling newborn babies after delivery. One victim, Blessing Aondosia, claimed that her baby was taken away from her by her husband after delivery.
She said that she went to a church conference from where they took him to a marriage, an arranged marriage. Because of frustration and difficulties, he returned home to meet the parents. The parents too, because they could not take responsibility, they decided to send him to a second marriage when he fell victim of this circumstance. That the said husband is the one who connived with those people to save the daughter.
These children come from initiates. Either the parents gave them up, or eventually they have children, like the nuns have children and all that, and they go into the priesthood. That's right, folks. And this is why Christian pagan authority don't want you reading the Old Testament. The reality is, brothers and sisters, we as Israelites, we were once in a pagan mind and a Gentile mind. The reality is we are Israelites surviving in a world of paganism. And guess what? That's a dangerous place if you don't know how to navigate through it. It's all fun at first, but as you age and grow into this, you start to realize how dangerous it is knowing what you know.
Stop it! No! Put on the glasses. Look at them, they're everywhere!
I don't know. Maybe they can see Valley 5th and Spring.
Now hold on. You ain't the first son of a wake up out of their dream. What's that?
And with much wisdom, don't just get wisdom, get understanding on how to operate with it. Okay? Finish reading, Elder Lawyer.
Yes, sir. Verse number 11. And he took away the horses that the kings of Judah had given to the sun at the entering in of the house of the Lord by the chamber of Nathan-Melech, the chamberlain, which was in the suburbs, and burned the chariots of the sun with fire. And the altars that were on the top of the upper chamber of Ahaz, which the kings of Judah had made, and the altars which Manasseh had made, in the two courts of the house of the Lord, did the king beat down and break them down from thence, and cast the dust of them into the brook Kidron. And the high places that were before Jerusalem, which were on the right hand of the Mount of Corruption, which Solomon king of Israel had builded for Ashtaroth, the abomination of the Zidonians, and for Chemosh, the abomination of the Moabites.
Now, an asterisk is the same as Semiramis. It's the same as Diana in the New Testament that the Romans worshipped. Athena of the Greeks. Read.
And for Milcom, the abomination of the children of Ammon, did the king defile. And he brake down in pieces the images, and cut down the groves, which filled their places with bones of men. Moreover, the altar that was at Bethel, and the high place which Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, had made, both that altar and the high place he brake down, and burnt the high place, and stamped it with small...
Go ahead.
and stamped it small to powder and burnt the grove.
And they know that it's prophesied that Christ is going to do this throughout the earth upon his return. Mm-hmm. Yep. That there will be a visitation on all the high places and idols that have what? That have captured and controlled the minds of the people. In order for the kingdom to come through, all of the temples must fall. Because it's the temples which are the antennas controlling the minds of the population, including atheists. Atheists are believers. Okay? Atheists are believers, brothers and sisters. They'll make you believe, oh, I don't believe it, I don't know, I'm not sure. They are believers, or they wouldn't put so much time in trying to disprove a God they claim don't exist. If he doesn't exist, what are you doing? What is your fascination with trying to prove he doesn't? If something doesn't exist, I wouldn't spend no time on it. So what is this passionate thing to try to prove the Bible wrong? Or try to claim that there is no God? Your actions prove he must exist. Because if he was nothing, there would be no such thing as atheists. There would be no trying to disprove anything. Okay? Including atheists, folks. They believe. But they're more from the philosophical schools of, I must be showed. You must show me that there is a God. As if the Most High is going to come from his throne and say, you know what, because this little satanic peon want me to, appear, I'm going to come before him because that guy is that important. All right? This is what they think. Well, I don't see anything. I'm like, come on, dude. Or from the school of philosophy, they can't get the correct answers they needed from what? The religions they once respected. Like Christianity. See? They look at Christian theology and see the paganism and the history behind it and say, well, hold up. And it's confusing them because they are getting that twisted with whether or not God exists. Because their teachers never learned about the true God and the doctrine of the Bible. But I digress. Including atheists, Christ is coming to destroy. Okay. Why? Because these are people who don't want parameters. See, and that's the whole thing. Without a God to believe in, you can walk this earth without parameters. You can make parameters as you go. What you see is right. Okay. What you see is what should be done. Okay. And this is why you have atheists. These are they who will walk the earth, thinking that no one can judge them because there's no God. And they want to walk through this earth without parameters. And that's all it's about. Let me get a few more. Yes, sir. Let me show you the reverse. Right? Once we begin to fall as a people, then it was vengeance, payback, where the Gentile authorities began to come against us. Right? Now, let's go to where the Bible, let's get it real quick, where it tells us in the Old Testament that the Most High have a fire that will burn forever. Let's get that real quick.
Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse number
19.
Straight to the point.
Yep.
Okay. I'll start at verse number 19.
Yep.
Deuteronomy 32, verse number 19.
Come on.
And when the Lord saw it, he abhorred them because of the provoking of his sons.
He saw us doing the same things the Gentiles began to do then. Read.
And of his daughters.
Come on.
And he said, I will hide my face from thee.
I will hide my face from thee, Israel, Because we began to turn into pagans. We began to do what the pagans were doing in mass, in number. Okay? There was a war for the pagans to gain preeminence over the world. And at one point, our God held them at bay. Until what? We began to take on the traditions of pagans and celebrate that. And sacrifice our children to those gods. Read.
I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be.
I will see what their end shall be. Read.
But they are a very froward generation.
We are a froward generation. So it's not just a person being froward or perverse. The whole nation have turned to Satan and begin to practice like what? The Gentile nations that were on the outer skirts. We're beginning to operate like the Egyptians, like the Arabs, like the Hamites, like the Edomites. Read.
I will hide my face from thee. I will see what their end shall be.
And I will see what their end shall be.
They are a very froward generation, children in whom is no faith.
Read.
They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God.
So we put up a non-God for him. We began to worship the fallen angels. Polytheism is the worship of many gods. What gods? The fallen gods who control earth. They exist. Read.
It says, they have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God.
So if you want to put up a no God for me, read.
They have provoked me to anger with their vanities. And I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people.
So since you're going to put up a no God for me, I'm going to put up a no people for you. Edomites, pagans. You're going to have people who, what? Who are practicing Judaism, who's practicing religion. See? So if you want to put up a no God for me, I'm going to put up a no people for you. I'm going to put you under these people. These people whom you begin to follow and practice under. Since you believe their way is right, let's see how long you can survive their wrath. Folks, in this Bible right now is showing you the origin, the place where slavery, the spirit from which slavery would begin. See? Slavery starts with what? A race or nation placing us under the ideologies of their religion first. The belief in their God separates us from ours. Hence the reason when a foreign nation comes in and take over, they build religious temples. See? Here it is. Read.
I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation.
With a foolish nation. I'm going to put fools over you. It doesn't, everything they say don't have to make sense. And you're going to be looking at it, well, okay, all right, well, I guess I got to follow that. Well, all right. Fools. Which means these people will not make any logical sense at all. Oh yeah, don't worry about it. We're going to lock down for 2 weeks and then everything going to be straight. Well, okay, all right. 2 weeks. I can sacrifice 2 weeks. It's been 2 years.
Sharing the gospel of vaccination.
God has used scientists to come up with a preventive measure to finally get us through this pandemic.
These black pastors joined the Miami-Dade County mayor, commissioners, and other community leaders promoting public health, fittingly sanitizing that podium between speakers, encouraging people to get their shots.
Some people don't want to take the vaccine. not good sense.
This vaccine is safe, and this is our way out. And that's not just for the black community, but that's for every community.
The group moved inside as two of those pastors practiced what they've been preaching, rolling up their sleeves to get their second
you have to wear a mask.
The Pfizer vaccine.
And then the next day he'll be, well, really, you don't have to wear a mask.
There's been over a 20-to-1 return.
If you had put that money into an S&P 500 and reinvested the dividends, you'd come up with something like $17 billion, but you think it's $200 billion.
Here, yeah.
You're okay. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
These vaccines are highly, highly effective.
Vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick.
They're really, really good against variants.
Everyone who takes the vaccine is not just protecting themselves, but reducing their transmission to other people and allowing society to get back to normal.
Get your first shot, and when you're due for your second, get your second shot.
Our key goal is to stop the transmission, to get the immunity levels up so that you get almost no infection going on whatsoever.
When people are vaccinated, they can feel safe that they are not going to get infected.
If you're vaccinated, you're not going to be hospitalized, you're not going to be in an ICU unit, and you're not going to die. If you are fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask.
Anyone who is fully vaccinated can participate in indoor and outdoor activities, large or small, without wearing a mask or physical distancing.
But what they can't do anymore is prevent transmission.
We didn't have vaccines that block transmission. We got vaccines that help you with your health, but they only slightly reduce the transmissions. We need a new way of doing the vaccine.
The level of virus in the nasopharynx of a person who's vaccinated and infected is the same level as the level of virus in the nasopharynx of an unvaccinated person.
Reports from our international colleagues, including Israel, suggest increased risk of severe disease amongst those vaccinated early.
And if you look at Israel, which has always been a month to a month and a half ahead of us, they are seeing a waning of immunity, not only against infection, but against hospitalizations and to some extent death. A booster might actually be an essential part of the primary regimen that people should have.
The plan is for every adult to get a booster shot.
It's clearly one of the best investments I've ever been involved in.
Well, okay, I don't know which way. All right. Okay, you got to get the stuff. A matter of fact, the stuff won't be here for about another 5 to 7 years. A matter of fact, we got the stuff coming next month. Okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah. All right, well, really only the elderly have to worry about this, and the young kids and people, they don't have to worry about this because they got a 98% chance of getting over this just like any other thing. Only the elderly have to deal with this. Well, okay, all right, I can deal with that. Oh yeah, now we need people. Now that we got the elderly done, we need everybody else, and now we have the children. Oh, okay. All right. Hold up now. The people that got it, they're safe. It's the people that don't have it. They're the problem. Okay, yeah, they are the problem. The people who don't have it. Oh yeah, by the way, the people who got it, they can also spread it. Okay, the people that got it can spread it. See, this is what happens when you have a foolish nation over people. And the Bible says that in the earth, a stupor will come where everyone who are used to being lied to will just believe lies are normal. Well, the lies started off with them telling you that you were someone else and not the children of Israel. See? And if you're going to take on that lie and believe you're Gentiles, it's nothing for you to fall for everything else. He says, I'm going to put a foolish nation over you. So don't try to make logical sense of anything they bring forth or say. Don't even try it. Because they're not going to be able to make sense of it. See? Finish reading.
22. For a fire is kindled in mine anger, and shall burn unto the lowest hell, and shall consume the earth with her increase, and set on on fire the foundations of the mountains.
Come on. And I want to go to where it says, I will have indignation forever. It's in the same chapter there. A fire that burns forever.
Reading on, verse number 23, I will heap mischiefs upon them. I will spend all my arrows upon them, or I will spend mine arrows upon them. They shall be burnt with hunger, and devoured with burning heat, and with bitterness or bitter destruction. And I will also send the teeth of beasts upon them with poison, or serpents of the dust.
And you know what that's talking about? The serpents. It's talking about what? Being stung. Right? All right, now hold that. I'll get that in one moment. Let's get to the next one because I'm dealing with time here. Mm-hmm. Now, let's get Elder Lawyer. Once we began to fall, brothers and sisters, what happened? Now the Gentile nations would begin to persecute us. Now we're at the behest of the pagans. Now they have the power, according to these curses, to try to force us into their way of life. Right? Let's give an example. Let's go to the three sons, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. Mm-hmm. Elder Lawyer. Let's go to Daniel 3 and 8.
Daniel chapter 3, verse number 8.
Yep.
Wherefore at that time, certain Chaldeans came near and accused the Jews.
Embrace me as your king and as your God.
They spake and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. Thou, O king, hast made a decree that every man shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, shall fall down and worship the golden image.
And do what? Fall down
and worship the golden image.
And worship the golden image. So now,
like the cruel Leonidas,
under the Persians, the Gentile nations now were trying to force our teachers and prophets to bow down and worship a golden image. Okay? Now, this is idolatry against the Hebrews' law. Thou shalt have no other God before me. It's against the doctrine of God. Thou shalt not make any graven image of anything in heaven or in earth or in the earth beneath. Neither shall you bow down and worship it. I am the Lord. Why? Well, folks, listen to this clearly. Back in old time, there was no such thing as the internet. There was no such thing as television. Okay? There was no mass communications through the press. So in order to instill the fear of any nation's God, they had to make an image of that God and have that as a souvenir for every home. And therefore, each home was reminded of the God they had to fear. That's right. The fallen angels had the priests make images of them as a reminder of the God they served in any respective area. Hence the beginning of idolatry. That's the origin of it. So when you see statues in the Catholic Church of different saints and all that, it's not saints at all. These are the ancient gods and goddesses that were worshipped in past pagan temples. Right? So that's the origin of that. And the Most High told us, well, no. Let me tell you, you don't need an idol for me. The earth is my footstool. Okay? I have priests set up, prophets set up. I have the Levites set up. I got a temple. And this is where I communicate with you. No, you will not have any idols like the Gentiles. So that's why, brothers and sisters, you'll see Africans have all these different statues and all that, talking about Ogun.
Masks spread fear and respect. Masks are an expression of power originating from the world of natural spirits and ancestors.
Folks, Ogun is the fallen angel Simjaza. When they talk about Ogun, that's Simjaza, the fallen angel, who's bound in hell right now.
And they may think they are meant to rule the world.
And they made idols to Ogun. These are fallen angels. So back then, now that we've fallen, you got Hebrew sons are now being what? Faced with an ultimatum. You must follow the God of the Persians now. See? A lot of you don't even know this. And this is why I tell people, don't go into these shops going to get these African masks and all this other crap that they be having in these African artifacts. These are witch and warlock shops, where these witches and warlocks are praying spirits into stones, crystals, wood, anything that's made of the earth is where the spirits lie. Okay? And why do they do this? Because that was the old merchant way of getting repeat customers. They have all types of chaos going on in their house, and then you would have to run back to that same witch or warlock who sold you the artifact to get something else. That's how they got repeat customers back then. They would pray a spirit into something, you'll put it in your house thinking it's art, and all hell is breaking loose in your house. And you have to go back to that same shop and say, listen, something is going on, and they give you something else to take away that. Idolatry. The involuntary worship of angels. This is the world we've been born into, folks. There's a lot of jewels that's being dropped in this particular lesson today to let you understand the world we were born. This is a pagan world.
On earth sets us free. You shall burn me once again. Not with these flames, which hither ye have brought from regions where I reign. Ye fools and priests, I spit upon your fire.
So it's to the point where there's nothing for us here. It's like, man, what can I, everything is off. Right? How to navigate through it. Let's read it. Come on.
Verse 10. Thou, O king, hast made a decree that every man that shall hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, shall fall down and worship the golden image.
And you know what? That's deep. It's not too many times I glance into the chat, but someone made a good point. I'm not going to be long. I only got a few more scriptures to go through. Someone made a good point that in the midst of Black Panther, one of the more celebrated movies of our time, that all of the witchcraft, sorcery, and what we're talking about, they allow us to receive a Black Pride film promoting witchcraft, the same witchcraft that led to our captivity. And you notice that's the only time they would allow any Black Pride to be celebrated with blacks in power. Is that we're perpetuating the sorcery and witchcraft that led us here. Why couldn't they take that same production money and do a 10 Commandment depicting the Israelites under their original ethnicity? They could have had those same actors and all that. That guy could have played Moses in the movie of 10 Commandments. Why? It would have instilled the same level of pride, and guess what? It would have probably sold, the box office would have actually been blown away beyond that. More people would have went and seen that opposed to Black Panther. So it isn't about the money. It's about if we're going to allow them to celebrate something as a people, it must be under what? An ideology we control. We must perpetuate witchcraft amongst them and sensationalize that particular behavior to make them believe in order for them to obtain any level of majesty that they would have to use the craft to gain Wakanda. Well, no, we don't want Wakanda. We're Israelites. We are the children of Israel. You had us looking into Africa at first, and now you want us to look at Wakanda. Come to find out, Wakanda was an ancient god worshipped amongst the North American Indians here in America called Wakanda. Still another god that our people fell to. It all leads to our minds staying under the what? The control of the ancient pagan gods.
A man who has not prepared his children for his own death.
The Anasazi were an ancient people that flourished in the Four Corners region in the United States for thousands of years, until something drove them into the cliffs of the canyons and they disappeared. The official story says that the Anasazi simply migrated out of the region because of drought. But the fortresses they built in the cliffs before their sudden disappearance suggest something much more gruesome may have happened. Legend records that giants devoured them all.
Our third generation medicine man made the point that if we would have asked his grandfather why they would have gone through such Herculean efforts to move all this debris, right? They had to bring all of this from way down in the valley up here to build this edifice. It was because a portal opened, a doorway, and the giants came up out of the earth. And around the same time that Moses is on the other side of the world writing in, there were giants in the earth in those days. So it was a testament that they were trying to build something here to defend themselves from against something that was incredible, astonishing.
The traditional narrative concerning the Anasazi is that over a long period of time, 9 years, they gradually migrated away from this area because of drought. The problem is you don't build a fortified position with towers to defend yourself from drought. But what we're finding here and what we see evident in the ruins is a sudden disappearance. This was a people group that was in a very defensive position. They were in a defensive mode. They were fearing for their lives, defending themselves against some kind of an external threat.
Well, another thing, that official narrative that they slowly migrated out of the area over a 9-year period of time, the reason that doesn't work is because when the first archaeologists came in here, they found these rooms packed with salt, with weapons, with the little boards that they carried their babies around on. These are not things you would have left behind if you slowly migrated out of the area. They were literally gone overnight. To get to the bottom of the story of the Anasazi, we had the rare opportunity of meeting with a third-generation medicine man by the name of Dr. Don Mose, who is an academic in the Navajo Nation. And I asked him specifically, what happened with the Anasazi, these legendary pre-Pueblo Indians that lived around Mesa Verde and Chaco Canyon, but they seemed to disappear literally overnight. And so Dr. Mose begins telling us the story that is the sanitized version that you might even hear from some of the State Parks Department guides about how there was an extended drought. And so they slowly migrated out of the Four Corners area of the United States and later on became the Hopi, the Zuni, other Pueblo Indians of today. But when I challenged that and said, well, why then, if they slowly migrated out of the Four Corners area, did they leave behind everything that would have been important to them? And when I ask him that question, he looks right into the camera and he says, well, I should not tell you this, but if you would have asked my great-grandfather, here's the story that he would have told. And then he begins telling this epic, if you will, of a time before time when doorways in the Four Corners area of the United States opened and giants came up from out of the earth and began persecuting and cannibalizing the Anasazi, and the Anasazi fled for their lives. And this was the first great clue that we had, that if we went back to the original stories of the Pueblo Indians, we would receive an entirely different narrative that involved the arrival of this reptilian being that deceived the Anasazi, that taught them how to use their kivas for pharmakia, what Dr. Mose called sorcery. And in those kivas that were excavated around Chaco Canyon, artifacts were found that indicated ritual cannibalism had started among the Anasazi. Teeth bones, finger bones, found inside their kivas, which Dr. Mose said was a kind of witchcraft that led the Anasazi to opening these doorways of the earth through which the giants came.
Let's finish reading.
Verse 11, and whoso falleth not down and worshipeth, that he shall be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace.
Come on.
There are certain Jews whom thou hast set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have not regarded thee. They serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up.
So he's saying he's telling the king, you have these Israelites who are in high position who refuse to bow to the God of the Persians. See? Now we willingly just run into some simple religion.
Hey, get ready for deliverance. In times, they surrounding us at all sides. Sin is at an all-time high, perilous times. Abba, be with us. Who will survive? Father, forgive us. Whoa. No more playing with the faith, who tryna get a seal. Messiah's coming, don't believe it, he gon' still appear. Labels say that they will sign us if we change the message, but we not interested, don't fold when your faith is tested. Truth music, keep your riches, cause we saving treasures. I feel like Joseph, they tried to curse us, it became a blessing. Dry bones, the great awakening. Days of Noah aboard the ark before you can't get in. The devil don't play fair, he tryna play to win. You know he gon' tempt you with your favorite sin. He caught me slipping, I can't pretend. If it's wartime, we gon' fast bout it. Bounce back, Aki, this spiritual war. No doctrines of men, we gon' stick to this Torah. And the Psalms and the prophets and Messiah's words. These Hebrew spirituals gon' keep the tribes encouraged.
Hey, get ready for deliverance. Israel, I hope you hearing this. Sin is at an all-time high, perilous times. Abba, be with us, who will survive?
Abba, please have mercy on your chosen. Forgive us, please. You don't help us, who gon' intervene? Daniel 12:1, tell me what these scriptures mean. The prophets gon' come to pass, you can't skip a scene. Check your temperature, hot or cold, don't be in between. Having vivid dreams, people being taken up. Will you be in that number? Will I make the cut? Outside the narrow path, it ain't no escape for us. Luke 21:36, send them prayers up.
Oh, a house divided will never stand until we come together. We don't stand a chance. One understanding, one mind, won't nothing restrain us. If you believe, what is you ashamed of? Deliverance.
Break free, don't let them put a lock on your soul. Said you was a slave, but not anymore. Come back to the covenant, Jacob, you gotta endure. Drink this living water, don't let them stop you from growing. Jump over stumbling blocks, don't let them stop you from going. This the path of the ancients, had to go back to the basics. This that knowledge that they hid from my families for ages. But now you hearing this, what's next? Deliverance. What? Don't fold, don't break under pressure. I ain't gotta tell you what time it is. If you look around, you see, it won't be long. Look up. Whoa.